If you're wanting something cool and refreshing, an awesome dessert with just a little hint of fall in there, you've come to the right place. Today on Southern Keto, I'm going to show you how to make a no-bake pumpkin cheesecake that is super easy and delicious. It takes no time to put together. You probably already have most of the ingredients in your pantry. You may have to get some pumpkin, but you probably have the rest of the stuff sitting around already, or it's easily accessible. We're not using any powders, potions, pills, or puzzling instructions on this recipe. It's quick and easy. You can make it in the morning and be eating it by dinner, and it's gonna be one of your favorites, just like it is mine. And even if you don't like the pumpkin, you can leave it out just so you can make the perfect no-bake cheesecake. Stick around. So cheesecake usually has lots of complex instructions, special pans you gotta buy, water baths, all this kind of stuff. Forget that. I'm gonna show you how to make one with simple ingredients that everybody, even your non-keto people, will approve of. This one has been non-keto taste tested, by the way. So let's just get right into the kitchen today, and I'm gonna show you exactly what you need to put together this no-bake pumpkin cheesecake. Now first, let's make the crust for this no-bake keto pumpkin cheesecake. You're gonna need 1.5 cups of almond flour, and if you don't use almond flour, you could substitute sunflower seed flour or just double the crust that I used in my lemon dessert, but you will have to bake that part if you do that. Now the next thing you'll need is 2 tablespoons of Magic Baker's Blend or your favorite keto sweetener. Now this is optional, but I think since this is a pumpkin cheesecake and everything, you want a little bit of sweetness in that crust also, but hey, that's up to you. Then you're gonna need 3 tablespoons of salted butter. Now if you use unsalted butter, just add a pinch of salt into this crust also. It'll work just fine. That just cuts down on the amount of sweetener that you need to use because it really brings out that flavor. Now this part is totally optional, but I like to put a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon in the crust as well because hey, this is a pumpkin cheesecake. If you're not making a pumpkin cheesecake, leave it out. If you are, throw it in. So for this crust, I'm going to use a 9-inch pie plate, and I'm just going to spray it down with a little bit of olive oil or avocado oil. Either one will be fine. And then I tried my best to make it in my Ninja IQ blender because I love this thing for just about everything. So I go ahead and pour in all my almond flour. Then I'm going to pour in all my sweetener and my cinnamon, and then I'm going to step away for all the special effects. And I melted that butter in the microwave, so I'm going to go ahead and dump that in also. So then I'm just going to screw the lid onto it so that we can blend this up into a nice pie crust. Now I'm just going to put this right down on the base and pulse it a few times to combine it just into like a crumbly mixture. I normally use the food processor for this, but it was dirty, so I tried this. And after several attempts of pulsing this, furiously shaking it, cussing a few times, and then kicking the dog across the room. No, I'm kidding. You know that. You know my dog's spoiled rotten. Anyway, maybe you'll have better luck than I do, but hey, it didn't work for me. So what did I do? I improvised. I pulled out my trusty yellow mixing bowl. This thing hasn't failed me yet, and I just did it by hand. So if you don't have a food processor, definitely don't use that Ninja IQ blender for this because it ain't gonna work. But if you don't have a food processor, you can just throw it all in your yellow mixing bowl and do it by hand as well. You just want to do it until it makes a crumbly mixture like this. Just chop up the big chunks like I'm doing, and it's gonna work just fine. And if you have a yellow mixing bowl, but you don't have a spatula, just go in with your hands. Hey, you can do it all kind of different ways. You just do what's best for you. And you may not have a yellow mixing bowl, but if you don't have a mixing bowl at all, well, I guess you could do it on the counter. I hadn't tried it, but it should work fine. Now just take your whole crust mixture and put it into that pie plate that you sprayed with the olive oil or avocado oil. And nope, we're not gonna bake this. Now, you could if you want to, but this is a no-bake recipe and it works fine for no-bake. If you did want to bake it, I'd do about 350 for maybe 5-6 minutes till it turns a little bit golden, but it works just fine without it, and it sure is a whole lot easier. Then just take your spatula or your fingers or an implement of destruction of your choice and press that real firmly into that pie plate and just press it up against the edges a little bit. I'm gonna make a full crust for this one, but you can just put it along the bottom if you want more of that traditional New York style cheesecake look. Once you get it all pressed in like that, this is exactly what it should look like. It's gonna make a fine crust for this keto pumpkin cheesecake. So now we gotta make the filling. The first thing you're gonna need for the filling is some cream cheese, and you're gonna need a 2-pack.
I let it go back to when we played as kids, but things changed. That's the way it is. Come on, come on.
I'm gonna tell you right now, that never gets old. At least not to me. Anyway, back to the cheesecake. You're gonna need a 1.5 cups in all of heavy cream. This is the one I get at Aldi, and it's got a couple of thickening ingredients in it, carrageenan and something else, so you can use that if you want. It just helps to thicken it up a little, but if not, hey, use your favorite heavy cream. You're gonna need a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now make sure you demand beaver-free for clean living. You just need a teaspoon of that. And then you're gonna need some of this confectioner's swerve, or if you want to blend up your own, you can just take sweetener, throw it in that Ninja IQ blender that didn't work for the crust, and it'll make confectioners. You need 2/3 of a cup of that. The next thing you're going to need is some pumpkin pie spice. So go way back in the cabinet, dig that out. You need 1.5 teaspoons of it, and that's going to provide all the flavor for our star ingredient. And that star ingredient is, of course, 1 cup of pumpkin puree. So make sure you look at the label on your pumpkin when you buy it. The only ingredient on there should be pumpkin, or maybe pumpkin and a little bit of salt, but a lot of these are already pre-sweetened, contain a bunch of sugar, so just make sure you check that label before you buy it. If you don't want to miss any of my keto dessert videos, make sure you click the subscribe button down there, click the bell beside it. Anytime I do a new keto dessert, you'll know all about it. Now's the fun part. Let's put together this keto pumpkin cheesecake filling. So first I'm going to go in there with 3/4 cup of that heavy cream as the base. Then I'm going to go in with the confectioner's sweetener so that we can stir it up without having to worry about that powder flying everywhere. And then I'll just take one of my little beaters from the hand mixer and just kind of stir that powder in just a little bit, just to make sure it doesn't fly out. Get it incorporated before you start hand mixing it. Then I'll add in my cream cheese, and I always set it out about 1 hour before I cook. Just make sure it's softened up so it gets in there real easy. Now it's time to break out the old hand mixer. And if you don't have a hand mixer, I'll put a link down in the description to the one I use. This one works great. I've had it for a long time. But you just want to start combining all this together. I like to press it down just a little bit first, just to make sure that sweetener is not going to go flying everywhere, because we want it as sweet as possible. We don't need it in the air. And then I'm going to start this on a low speed and just keep working my way up until it starts combining and looking like this. Now that that's all mixed together and looking right and looking tight, I'm going to go in with the other 3/4 cup of the heavy cream, that beautiful pumpkin puree, and make sure you use a spoon or something else to get it all out. And then let's give it the flavor it truly deserves with some of that pumpkin pie spice. That's a blend of nutmeg, ginger, clove, and some other good stuff, and it just makes it absolutely perfect. And don't forget your teaspoon of that beaver-free vanilla extract, except no substitutes. And then let's just blend it up again. Make sure it gets all nice and smooth. And I suppose if you didn't have any exercise for the day or whatever, you could do this by hand if you really wanted to. Get those forearms nice and big like Popeye. But hey, this hand mixer is a whole lot easier, so I believe I'm going to use that instead. So I'm just going to keep mixing this until it gets fully incorporated in there. All that spice mixes in with that cream and that cream cheese and that pumpkin. Oh man, this is going to be a good one. Then all you got to do is spoon that filling into that crust. And it's going to look like way too much filling, but believe me, this is going to make a beautiful cheesecake. So just spoon all that in there, and then we'll move on to the next step. Well, of course you got to make it pretty first, so I put on my pink nails, started smoothing this thing out proper. Now you can make it look like this if you want, make it kind of rustic, if you will. Or you can smooth it out real smooth if you want to. I mean, it's all up to you. Whatever paddles your canoe, you know what I'm saying? After you get it as ugly or as pretty as you want it, you got to put it in the refrigerator. This thing needs to sit in there at least 5-6 hours. Now I know it's not going to be easy, but you got to do it because it needs to set up proper in order to have a proper cheesecake. Now after it's had its cold, quiet time of reflection, it's time to take it out, and this keto, no bake pumpkin cheesecake is looking right. Okay, gotta go. So now that we've waited all that time, it is time to slice into this beauty. I mean, tell me that does not look amazing. Look at all that pumpkin spice in there. Look how creamy and delicious this comes out. I mean, this is a cheesecake without the crazy water baths and spring form pans and all that stuff. How about a quick and easy version instead? And you can finish up this pumpkin cheesecake a couple different ways. Just sprinkle right on top a little bit more pumpkin pie spice. Or if you want to go ahead and get real fancy with it, just go on top with a little bit of this zero sugar keto whipped cream. Hey, use as much or as little as you want. And if you really want to hit it over the head, go in with a little bit more pumpkin pie spice right on top of that whipped cream. Now it looks pretty, so let's see how it tastes. Now I gotta try it. This keto no-bake pumpkin cheesecake is absolutely phenomenal. I'm gonna go in for another bite. Hey, this is the real deal right here. If you don't make this, you're missing out. Here, come get you a bite. Now, if you like that recipe, you're really gonna love these. Make sure you check out either that one or that one, and I'll see you over there.